Well, folks, we got a lot to talk about, and really, it's all around the biggest news of the week. If you guys recall, we made a video yesterday talking about how PlayStation is pulling physical games and no longer making physical discs for brand new games as of January of 2028. You can go and watch that video if you want some of my thoughts on that news. Today, we have some updates around this in regards to Nintendo themselves. So, first off, we have some unfortunate news that Xbox seems to be doing the exact same thing. I don't think anyone is surprised. But we also have some sales data information out of Japan to kind of kick off a conversation about Switch 2 because there's now a report out there about Nintendo actually being significantly pretty far away from even considering an all-digital future. So Nintendo kind of sticking their flag in the ground as the bastions of physical and the last ones left that are going to have a retail presence with games. It's kind of crazy to think about that when we get to holiday season of 2028, which is like right in the prime days of Switch 2, right dead center of the generation, when we should be looking forward to 3D Zelda and just came off of Mario, and Smash Bros should be on the horizon, and it's like going to be an amazing time to be a Nintendo fan. Nintendo, they're keeping physical going. So let's go ahead and dive in. After a reminder, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2, which I guess in today's world with how expensive things are going, maybe we upgrade this and make it a bundle. No promises, but I'll consider it. That being said, guys, you can enter through the link down in the pinned comment or in the description. I wish everyone luck on that. You just have to be subscribed to the channel. And who knows, maybe this is the video where we hit 163,000 subscribers. We're really close. All right, let's go ahead and dive in first to, let's just talk about the actual sales data. Let's get to some news that isn't necessarily so glum. So we have the Japanese sales charts come in here, and this was the debut of Star Fox. So Star Fox did debut at number 1, and it did outsell the last 2 entries for Star Fox at launch. Of course, not being able to outsell the sales data we have anyways for the original release back on the N64. But again, this is seemingly a pretty good start for Star Fox, and this is just physical sales. Just to note, the Famitsu charts out of Japan do not include digital sales for Nintendo games. So this is actually a pretty good number, and maybe even with digital did outsell the original N64 game. All right, you can see Tomodachi Life Living the Dream at 2, Powerful Pro Baseball at 3, eFootball Kickoff at 4, Pokopia at 5, Mario Kart World at 6, Metabots Card Robo Battle RB at 7, Blackish House Side Z Retour at 8, The Adventures of Elliot, Millennium Tales at 9, and Minecraft at 10. Then we get to the console sales, and again, they're just saying really consistent. We've seen 23 to 26,000 unit sales every single week since the price went up, and that has continued here. It is possible, not guaranteed, but is possible that it will cross 6 million lifetime next week, but if not next week, certainly the week after, as it would just be a few thousand short. That being said, you see PlayStation 5 Digital Edition in there at number 2 with 8,797 sales, hitting 1.3 million. Switch OLED at 4,000 units, Switch Lite at 2,500, and so on and so forth, all the way down the list. So again, these sales are pretty decent for Nintendo, and look, they don't really add a lot of perspective to anything other than the fact that the big story of the week has obviously been all about the fact that PlayStation is cutting off physical games, and they're starting it in January of 2028. And now reports are out there that Xbox is doing the same thing, and this expected. We thought Xbox might even announce it first before PlayStation, but Nintendo may be the last bastion of physical games, because Xbox's Project Helix is set to ditch discs. So earlier this week, Sony dealt a devastating blow to the gaming community by confirming that it would no longer offer physical discs for the PS5 from January 2028 and onwards. Now, according to a report from Windows Central, it sounds like Xbox's upcoming Project Helix will launch without a disk drive, potentially joining Sony in ditching the discs altogether. To add fuel to the fire, The Verge is also reporting that Microsoft is tinkering with the idea of converting Xbox One and Xbox Series physical games into digital media. While the future is unclear, this essentially means that Nintendo could be the last bastion for physical games going forward. Now, what's interesting with this is I don't actually think this idea of having a program to convert your physical games to digital, if you plan to buy an Xbox Helix or whatever, is necessarily a bad thing, because without a disk drive, there's no way to have backwards compatibility. So this kind of takes care of that concern. But then also, if you're converting them to digital copies, that means they're no longer physical copies, which means the license is no longer valid on those physical items, and those physical items are as good as, well, I guess what you can recycle them for, because they won't be able to be launched in any other system moving forward. You will have removed their ability to be a physical game, which I know feels weird when we talk about physical, but this is where I remind everyone, when you buy games, you're just buying a license that even includes on the physical disc. So if that license is transferred into a digital one, it's no longer valid. It's not going to work anymore. At least that's the theory. Of course, on older school games, systems weren't really set up that way. But for things like if you were buying Xbox Series games physically, yeah, their games were probably set up to have that license revoked. So it's just something to consider. They could do and offer as an option. I doubt they're going to force people into it. But I don't know, guys. It's just really sad. I don't like, you guys know I like to look on the positive side and be really bubbly about this. Well, one thing we can look at positively, as we are on the Nintendo side of things. So there are 3 current generation home console makers, and only one of them has no plans at getting rid of physical. And they so have no plans that every indication is they're all like full steam ahead with physical, and that is despite game key cards existing. We get this information from our article over here on Nintendo Everything. Excellent work by them. This one written by Carlos. So it says, earlier today, Sony announced that it'll discontinue physical releases for PlayStation 4 and 5, which has reignited concerns about the future of physical media across the gaming industry. Unsurprisingly, many fans have begun asking whether Nintendo could eventually make a similar move. At the moment, however, the company's strategy appears to point in the opposite direction. While game keycards have generated plenty of debate since their introduction, Nintendo has continued to demonstrate that physical releases remain an important part of its business. In fact, producing physical games is more expensive for Nintendo than it is for its competitors. According to data obtained by FRVR, the average manufacturing cost of a physical PS5 game is around $6.50 per unit, while a limited production run of Nintendo Switch cartridge can cost between $12 and $15. For Switch 2, the number is apparently a bit higher. Despite those higher production costs, Nintendo continues to manufacture significantly more physical games than any other platform holder. At a time when much of the industry is embracing digital distribution, the company remains heavily invested in retail releases. Recent pricing decisions also reinforce that position. Nintendo has introduced higher-priced physical editions for some first-party titles, giving players the option to pay a premium for a complete game on cartridge, rather than moving away from physical media. The company is continuing to place value on it. Game keycards also fit into this strategy. Although they are not traditional physical releases, they offer developers a lower-cost manufacturing option while preserving many of the benefits of retail games, including the ability to buy, sell, trade, lend, and collect them. They can be viewed less as a replacement for physical media and more as Nintendo's attempt to provide publishers with an alternative that keeps games on store shelves. Nothing is guaranteed in an industry that is changing as quickly as gaming. However, based on Nintendo's current approach, there is little evidence to suggest that the company is preparing to abandon physical media anytime soon. If anything, Nintendo may ultimately become the industry's biggest supporter of physical games as more publishers continue shifting towards digital distribution. There's also one thing to bring up that now sort of sits on Nintendo's shoulders and could actually be some sort of internal conversation point on them keeping physical going another generation and maybe another generation after that. And that is that whenever Nintendo does make this decision, which I do think probably sometime during my lifetime, Nintendo will make this decision with a platform. It's just, I just think it's inevitable. I do feel like they are under some pressure to not make this decision for a long time, because now that everyone else has seemingly made the decision, although Microsoft's isn't technically announced publicly yet, Nintendo will be the ones that are viewed as, you guys ended physical media, whenever they decide to no longer provide physical copies for their games. So it is one of those things where that is like a reputation Nintendo probably doesn't want to be stuck with, even though that is now the position they're going to find themselves in. That, hey, whenever they do make that decision, they're going to get a lot of backlash for being the company that killed physical, even though without Nintendo, physical wouldn't be around. And I think we could just safely say that. I don't think that's speculation. I don't think it's console wars. I think it's just a straight up fact. It's almost undeniable. Switch 2 isn't going to suddenly stop having physical games when we get to 2028. That's not how it works. Every single system has a cartridge slot. And by the way, Nintendo's sales data show that there is still very strong demand for physical games, roughly being around 50% of their actual game sales. So yeah, Nintendo isn't stupid. They have a very healthy digital player base and a very healthy physical one, and they're continuing to support both. Now, I do think the way some of the stuff is worded in this article is obviously taking the optimist look at things, being like, hey, game key cards, they're not detrimental. They're actually helping maintain physical's presence by giving publishers an option to be, cheaply into retail. And I buy that on some respects, I suppose. It probably brings the cost, if I had to guess, that probably brings the cost closer to that $6.50 that it costs to be like on a disc. But still, I don't know that game keycards are really helping in that regard. I guess I will say, if they are enabling more games to be on shelves that just would be on the shop instead, I guess that does help Nintendo's retail presence, I suppose. But setting that aside, obviously Nintendo continuing to use physical cards themselves. And I said this a long time ago that I always felt the end of physical to me was signaled on PlayStation and Xbox the moment we got to the PlayStation 4 generation and you needed to install your games. You had to do that on PC, and the moment that internet speeds got fast enough, it started making more sense to download instead of install, because sometimes downloading was even faster than installing off a disc to begin with. So it actually was more convenient. And now you get to today where that's also true today. Sometimes games are downloading and installing faster from the internet than from the disc. Yet Nintendo kept that one key component that almost sank them many years ago, and that is they never abandoned cartridges, even as they made the mini discs on GameCube, and obviously eventually those specialized discs on Wii U even, and obviously they had the DVDs for Wii. I think the interesting part that despite doing that, they still had cartridges going in their handheld format. They never left the cartridge space. And in fact, to date, is the only platform I'm aware of out there, forget just video games, in general, that uses cartridges. Pretty crazy. Like, Nintendo's it. The buck stops with them. So I do think that Nintendo obviously believes that retail presence is very important for brand recognition, and they're probably not entirely wrong on that front. I know that a lot of the world has moved on to internet and TikTok, and I realize kids are more online than ever before, and yeah, they're going to see some stuff online, but look, as someone who's been going to a lot more stores in person this summer, because it's summertime and there's just a lot of stuff that needs to be done. Well, the thing is, I'm seeing a lot of children at these stores discovering things, saying things to their parents for the very first time because they're seeing it with their own eyes. There is still massive benefit to retail presence, especially in your larger retail stores like your Walmarts, where you can guarantee families are walking through Walmart to get whatever the hell they need for their house. So yeah, I do think that we are in a interesting situation where Nintendo does see a lot of value in the physical space. They see a lot of value in the retail space. And because of that, they're sort of in this advantageous position where they now have all the benefit of in-person stuff that the other companies are kind of going away from. I find that just to be a really, really interesting thing. Also, retail in general would probably favor, you would assume, a platform like Nintendo, just because they can drive even more purchases at their store, not just digitally. And I know Walmart still carries CDs, they still carry vinyl, they still carry DVDs and Blu-ray. So Walmart isn't like trying to get rid of physical. So they actually think there's still some value and obviously see enough sales to keep small sections of it around. I think the same is true for Nintendo, and they're about to have the biggest game section in all of these stores by default. I think that's wild. So, yeah, Nintendo is just sort of the last one standing, and they seem to be standing with intent. I know you can look at a lot of this stuff and twist the game key cards to be assigned. They're going that way. You could twist the game pricing. Oh, look, they're making digital pricing cheaper because they're trying to push everyone to digital. And yeah, there's obviously some business sense truth. And Nintendo probably wants their consumers to convert over to digital because they do make more money per sale, even with that $10 off. But I just got to throw this out there that Nintendo might just want their cake and want to eat it too. AKA, they're not trying to get rid of physical. They're trying to expand. They want to convert some of their current base over to digital to make more money off them while still bringing in a new base with physical. I truly think Nintendo is just trying to do it all. And look, the sales is showing to Nintendo that they're probably have no reason to abandon physical anytime soon. And now that they're the only one left, pretty much any consumer that refuses to game or is significantly going to cut back on gaming without physical copies, you're going to start seeing a lot of them converting over to Switch 2, simply because, look, we have the physical copy of Indiana Jones. We have the physical copy of, Oblivion remastered for some reason. Like, I don't know why we're getting these physical copies when no one else got them. But hey, there is reasons, and the reason is there is a much stronger demand for physical on Switch 2. And we saw this before these announcements, just with companies bringing their games physically here that they are not bringing physically to other platforms. Clearly, they see a demand for physical games on Nintendo, and Nintendo sees that demand too. So I do think that Nintendo just doesn't really have a long-term plan to sunset physical. I don't even think it's a conversation they've had, but I do think it will happen. And I'm not delusional. I do think all digital is the future for every platform holder. But I do think Nintendo might be holding out for longer than I thought they would. Look, guys, I'm in the final week of my 30s. I actually think Nintendo still might be making physical games by the time I'm 50. That's a decade from now. It's another generation. I'm starting to feel pretty good about that, actually. Maybe it's hopium. And if it is, why would you rain on my parade? You shouldn't be cheering for Nintendo to make more bad decisions, like getting rid of physical. You should want my hopium to be real. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I am Nintendo RoboJazz from Nintendo Prime. Catch you guys in the next video.